Hello, five enemies. Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
there are enemies
Yeah.
here?
Hello, friends and enemies. Hello, five listeners. Hello, BD Wong. It's
Hi.
time for Perhaps It's You, your favorite unofficial Unsolved Mysteries rewatch podcast.
I'm Samantha.
I'm Liz, and we have a special guest today, your voice crush. It's Mac.
Hi, everyone.
I think we had a request to have Mac on this episode. This what is it? Episode three of
we're
season
on
five?
episode
Two
three.
of season five.
We're on episode three.
Three. Oh my god, I don't even know what day it is anymore.
No one does. It's okay.
Are we making a podcast right now?
For some reason, yes. We're going to keep those five enemies happy if it's the last thing we do.
Absolutely. Does anyone know how BD Wong is doing?
I asked on Twitter and I got no answers, and I just hope he's okay.
Oh no, BD Wong, if you're listening.
He's not on Twitter, so I can't ask him directly. So
Dang.
you know.
I bet he's got a fake. He's got like an anonymous account.
Or like a PR person runs an account for him, right?
I mean, he doesn't have a like checkmark account, so maybe he's just
Oh.
like, I don't know what.
He's drilled.
Some random thing.
There was that BD Wong bot on Twitter.
Yes.
Where anytime anyone on Twitter mentioned BD Wong, they would just tweet back BD Wong with an exclamation point.
That I don't think it's up anymore because I didn't get that for my app.
What was the point
God.
of that? I don't know.
BD Wong bot is sick.
Oh no!
Not the bot.
Not the BD Wong bot.
Yeah, how are you hanging in there, Samantha?
Taking it one day at a time.
That's good. I don't think I'm doing that, and that's a bad idea. Don't be like me.
Well, I mean, in a way you are, right? I mean, we all do it in our own way.
I guess.
I'm just hanging out with the dogs every day. This is the greatest time of their lives.
Yeah, dogs love this. They get lots of attention. People are home all the time. Perhaps they get extra walks. It's like the best thing that ever happened to them.
Definitely. How are you guys holding up over there?
I mean, we're alive, so that's good.
That's really all you can ask for
But
at this point,
real
right?
low. Very, very low. Mac, how are you holding up?
It's
Concerned
It's weird.
with our beef jerky supplies.
yeah, you were eating that just before we started. Throw you under the
You
bus.
really gotta ration the quarantine snacks. It's very tempting to just eat them all.
I'm just
It's
lying
tough,
in
yeah.
bed, staring into the
Yeah.
abyss, not doing anything.
Mhm.
That somehow takes up a lot of my time. Very long naps, like ridiculously long naps.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I do have a couple updates. Update number one. A huge thank you to listener Patrick that sent us a
Yes.
month of the Criterion channel. That is amazing. That is a super nice
Such
gift.
an amazing gift.
I had mentioned on the last episode that Filmstruck was gone, and Patrick was like, oh, they basically just rebranded it as the Criterion channel. Here's a month of it. How amazing is that?
Amazing. Thank you so much.
So
Patrick,
really,
People are really-
I know that Patrick had no intention of giving that to me, but I will be watching it and I appreciate it.
Mac is like an added bonus to that. That's super sweet and super considerate. I should probably, since I'm really like literally doing nothing, start like watching a movie a day or something.
You could do it. Perhaps it's you letterboxed, where you write little reviews of all the movies you watch.
Oh, see, there you go. I mean, I probably won't, but I could.
I've got lots of homework assignments if you're interested.
Maybe that's really what we need right now. Some friends of ours, their kids have been making a kids news every day, and it's literally the most adorable thing I've ever seen in my life. It's just them giving
Yeah.
like an update on like what is happening in the house, like where they are on Lego projects, and
Oh my goodness.
how much.
What's like a breaking news story that they've covered? Like the hamster got loose or something?
Yeah, they've shown their pets. They had they talked to their uncle in Buenos Aires, so they
They did an interview.
had a foreign correspondent. They update on what the toilet paper situation is, and that it's literally the cutest
Very
thing I've
important.
ever seen in my life.
It's freaking adorable.
So shout out to Kid. This episode of Perhaps It's You actually brought to you by Kids News.
It's actually the only news source I've been consuming. So
It's a lot less
I don't know.
depressing than other news sources.
People seem really freaked out in general, but I'm not sure why, because all I've known is that Rex is doing well on his Legos, and it's a nice day out. So
Yeah, they do the weather. There's like
Seems good.
dancing. Yeah.
everything seems fine. I don't know what people are talking.
It's freaking adorable.
The other update that I had was a couple episodes ago. We talked about beauty queen Tammy Lynn, who vanished off the face of the earth. And you had asked if she was actually in the movie Scarface, and I said that I didn't think she was. I was wrong. So
No.
if you watch Scarface, you will see Tammy Lynn. This is coming from Wikipedia. She is the girl who is a distraction to the lookout car during the bloody chainsaw shower scene.
I honestly wondered if it was near the chainsaw scene, and I don't know why I thought that. But
I've
that's fine.
never seen Scarface, so that is quite a sentence.
I've never seen it either, so that sounds wild.
But that's kind of cool that she's in such a like beloved, remembered movie. It's her
Right, 'cause when
legacy.
you Google her, that movie comes up, so I was wondering if she was in it. It turns out she is.
Yeah.
So she lives on.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
justice for Tammy Lynn.
I know.
We have a new episode to talk about today. We are on episode 3.
Yes.
This episode is pretty good.
I actually really liked it.
Am I at the right part of my notebook? No, but okay. Oh yeah.
You're first, right, Liz?
I am first, and I'm talking. Oh, first of all, though, when Robert Stack is like just introducing the episode, is he at the DMV? Where the hell is he? He's standing.
It did look like some kind of government.
Yeah, that they just like dimmed the lights on, and I was like, is that the DMV? Not sure.
Robert, we really need to shoot today. Well, too bad. I'm getting my license renewed.
All right.
I mean, make the best of it. Okay, so my case is a wanted.
Is it though?
They called it a wanted. It's really not though. It's if you look this up on Unsolved Mysteries Wiki, it's referred to as the Seattle Arsonist. This is a case from 1989. It is so there was an arsonist in the area, but this segment is mostly talking about the 4-alarm fire that was the Blackstock lumber warehouse fire. So it starts with some footage of that includes like the roof exploding and a warehouse burning down. And they thought it was connected to an unidentified arsonist that had been connected to over 20 fires in and around Seattle. So the Blackstock lumber fire happens at 10 p.m. 20 fire trucks respond. At first, they thought that the fire was controllable, but then it very quickly spread to other parts. And like I said, the roof exploded. So we hear a little bit about Matt Johnson, who was a firefighter who died in the fire. His partner is interviewed from Unsolved Mysteries, and he talks about just how the intense heat was so overwhelming that it felt like he was being x-rayed by heat. So it felt like he was being x-rayed by heat, and so it was impossible for him to get his partner out of the blaze because he was so like weak and disoriented. And the lack of oxygen and the intense heat left Matt unable to move. So he ended up dying in the fire, but his partner, who we hear from, Bill Meredith, was able to escape. So Matt's body is found in rubble the next day. He left behind a wife and a 15-month-old son. So originally they were thinking that maybe the fire had started by accident, like someone was trying to keep warm and it got out of control. But then we hear from investigator Dennis Flower, who thinks he discovered a pattern in the ruins that matched the signature of a serial arsonist that he had been tracking for years. And it seems like this guy has created this like mythological nemesis in his mind that it's like him versus this arsonist. And he's like determined to track him down. And he says that he first encountered this arsonist in 1984 when Seattle's Carpet Exchange warehouse burned down in less than 20 minutes. And that the fire was so intense, it melted concrete and warped steel beams, which I'm not going to say anything about 9/11 right now. So, after the Blackstock lumberyard fire, the Seattle Police Department began investigating on a national scale. They were like looking for other warehouse fires that fit that pattern, and they decided that there was 20 fires in the United States and Canada that seemed to be started by the same individual who they were calling the King of Arsonists, which is super ridiculous. Okay, so the fires started by this arsonist were considered especially dangerous because okay, this sentence from Unsolved Mysteries Wiki makes no sense to me. The fires set by this arsonist were especially dangerous because the oxygen in their water only made the fire burn faster and hotter.
They said that in the episode, and I'm sorry, but
What?
I don't know. Look, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a fire investigator. I know very little about water, but I don't think the oxygen in water makes fires burn better. Is that a thing?
Well, I guess like a grease fire, if you throw water on it, it just spreads it around, right? It doesn't put it out. So maybe it did say that there was some special accelerant being used that they had a hard time identifying.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know a lot about it either, but
They were like, the chemicals they used meant it burned really hot, and the oxygen in our water only made the fire work. Like, I've never heard this before, and it sounds super not real.
yeah, that is a weird one, but
They claimed he was
I don't know.
the most sophisticated arsonist in the history of the United States, and a part of what made him so dangerous was that he designed his fires to be death traps. And like Mac was saying, he was said to use an accelerant that was unknown and left no residue. Okay. They were calling it a high temperature accelerant, or HTA, and that it generated temperatures between 5,000 and 7,000 degrees, which is 3 times hotter than a normal fire. So
yeah, so maybe at that heat, yeah, you boil the water almost immediately, and then it ends up feeding the flames somehow. I don't know.
well, good thing we have Mac here because that just sounded like gibberish to me.
That sounds more legit than what they were saying in the episode. So maybe that's it.
And at this point, I drew a mustache, and I think it was this guy trying to track the arsonist, but honestly, I don't remember. I just remember that he had a really sophisticated looking mustache. It actually looked really good on him, and I called it the Alfred. And it's one of the few cases where I was like, yes, that white guy should have a mustache. Looks great. So we now get to the part where the Seattle Fire Department does a test fire with an empty shopping mall, which is wild to me. So there was, I guess, this mall that no one was using anymore. So they just decided to burn it the fuck down. And then they did different accelerants or like different mixtures and fuel of different parts of the mall to try to figure out what this arsonist was using. And they wouldn't tell us on the show what it was because they don't want us all to become the king of arsonists. But they said that it was
Well, the prince at this point, right? The king you'd be the prince or princess.
the Duke and Duchess of arsonists. The fuel was said to be a mixture of several common ingredients, and that they felt that the arsonist might not be an engineer, but he definitely knew a lot about building construction because
He's read a book. He's
he's very dangerous. He has a library card. He knows how to use it. That he knew enough about building construction to like make sure the fires were death traps. So I sort of feel like really hot fires, they're going to be death traps. Like, I don't understand. They also speculated that he might be mixing this like special accelerant and getting other people to light it, but that's based on like nothing. I don't see any evidence of that.
There's not a lot of evidence.
Yet another unsolved
Yeah,
mystery.
To be honest.
Yeah, that's another unsolved mystery. So that test was done on March 25th, 1990. They burned down that shopping mall, which, God, that must have been so fun.
It looked fun in the video.
I wish I could have been there for that.
I don't think there was a lot of scientific value, but they got to light shit on fire, which is probably just what they wanted to do.
Yeah. So according to their test, only one fire produced the same type of fire that was at the Blackstock lumberyard. And that was based on an eyewitness who read about the fire in the paper and realized he had been in the area 15 minutes prior to when the alarm was called in. Oh, this is the person that sees this car. So someone saw a 1970s or 1980s Mercedes driving out of the parking lot of the lumberyard shortly before the fire. And it just seemed weird. Like it was a super nice car coming from a warehouse. So they kind of remembered that. From a different fire, there's a woman that saw a quote suspicious man after the fire was set, and literally the only thing suspicious about him was that he wasn't looking at the fire. That there was like a crowd gathering, and then this one man was like, "Whatever, I've seen fires, I don't care." So he's like walking away, and she thought that was suspicious. So they show sketches.
The cool guys don't look at explosions.
Yeah, he was like too cool.
Yeah.
She was like, I don't know. There's something suspicious about how cool that guy is. So they had, under hypnosis, of course, because this is Unsolved Mysteries, they had both eyewitnesses describe the two men that they saw and then had sketches made. They don't look a thing alike, but they are wanted for questioning, even if they're not arsonists. The guy driving the Mercedes was between 35 and 40 in 1992. He had gray hair and a mustache and a beard and a receding hairline. And the guy that was like too cool for school was 6 foot, well-dressed, in his mid to early 30s in 1992, and was said to have an athletic build, dark complexion, and dark hair. So 2 firefighters died in these arson fires. We hear only about Matt Johnson, but also Robert Earhart died in 1988 apartment fire. So the authorities at the end of the segment are like looking into suspicious insurance claims. So this aired in 1992. The thing is, the lumberyard fire probably is not an arson, because guess what? It's a warehouse full of lumber. Yeah. Very burnable stuff.
This whole episode, they present almost no actual hard evidence. They just keep talking about how hot the fire was burning and how they didn't know what the accelerant was. Couldn't the accelerant have been wood?
Yeah.
Wood factory.
Yeah.
Wood factory burned really well.
Like, the fact that they're like, we can't find any evidence of accelerant. It somehow has left no residue. There's like literally no evidence of it. They're just like, but it was really hot. So this is what Unsolved Mysteries Wiki says. Unresolved. In September of 92, Paul Keller was arrested for several arson fires in Seattle. Originally, he was thought to be the arsonist. However, in February of 1995, a new investigation by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms into the Blackstop lumberyard case determined that it was an accident. Investigators concluded that the high temperature accelerant was not the cause, and that a power line most likely caused the sparks. Another possibility was that, and this is their word, transients had accidentally started the fire. Either way, lumber stored at the facility caused the fire to reach such high temperatures. It's like, yes, it's just a thing of fire fuel. Like,
I can't believe this match warehouse exploded. What?
Yeah. Many of the fires that were believed to be caused by this like special accelerant were actually determined to be accidents. However, authorities have yet to close all cases linked to the, quote, king of arsonists. So there probably were some arson cases in Seattle, except that the one that they talk about on Unsolved Mysteries is just a tragic fire at a lumber warehouse.
Well, it's something they mentioned because they referenced fires across the country that they thought were attributed to this king of arson. But then they mentioned just like offhandedly, sorry if you just heard my dog sneeze. They mentioned just like offhandedly that they were looking into insurance claims related to some of the fires, which is like, I mean, yeah, it's arson, but they're making it sound like this diabolical evil person who's just going around setting fires to kill firefighters specifically. And when it's like, some of these that were probably arson maybe were more for insurance money. But this one specifically was just a wood factory burned down.
But if you're going to burn down your facility for the insurance money, why would you go with anyone but the king?
Well, I guess that could be one theory, is that people were hiring him for their insurance thing. But that
would make a good movie.
I don't think that's true.
You've tried the rest. Now try the best. The king of arson.
I think that they felt, for whatever reason, like very attacked. Like they seemed to take this very personally, and I'm sure they were quite upset that this firefighter died. but I don't think someone like masterminded this to make this like perfect death trap. It's more just fires are dangerous.
And wood burns pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fire expert, but I do know that.
I've seen many forensic files, and I'm sure if forensic files were updated, this would be like even more common, but that where an arson investigator will point to things and say like, oh, this proves the burn pattern like started in this room and this accelerant was used, blah, blah, blah. And then like a few years later, someone comes in and is like, yeah, that's actually none of that is true. It was an electrical fire. This person's in jail for no reason. Like,
Yeah.
things that people were pointing to as like irrefutable evidence turned out to be like way more open to interpretation, and that people that were arson investigators had received actually very little training. They had received like just enough training to be dangerous and think they knew what they were talking about, but they would be interpreting things wrong. And the fact that these people just assumed there must be this like miracle accelerant that they couldn't like test for or see any evidence of. Like, what are you basing that on? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, arson investigation is like a lot of forensic science that has come under increased scrutiny in recent years. Like we often talk about how hair analysis is just completely bunk. And I don't know that it's completely bunk, but it's more like to use it properly would have it guide your investigation, but you would have other evidence.
Right.
Not just going off of because burn patterns, like Liz said, if you watch old forensic files, what are referred to as burn patterns, like people know now that normal accidental fires can create things that look like accelerant pooling or whatever. So I'm suspicious of this specifically because there's no other evidence. The witnesses, that means nothing. There's just people around a fire. Like that doesn't a huge fire. That doesn't mean any of them were an arsonist. And all the only thing they had was that it was really hot. Like it's a giant fire in a wood factory. Of course it's hot. Like what?
I think they were mostly excited that they had footage of like things burning down, and that makes for okay television, but there's not really a lot of a case here. Yep. Okay. Now it's time for Mac. We brought Mac on the show because we have a more political case. So he's going to take us down memory lane.
Yeah, I'm the assassination guy, I guess. The second segment of this episode deals with Huey Long, the kingfish, which I discovered was a declared nickname. He started.
You can't do that. That's not how nicknames work.
He started answering the phone as this is the kingfish and stuff like that. So
uncool.
He's
what a loser.
Yeah. So the segment is, I mean, it's more about who Huey Long was and that's probably what's most interesting about it. The mystery itself is just sort of like, well, here's the story of his assassination, and maybe it didn't happen that way. So as far as a mystery goes, I don't know that it's mysterious, but I do think Huey Long is an interesting figure and certainly worth
Are you telling us you're not a
talking
Huey Long
about.
truther?
Well, I mean, we'll talk about that later, I guess. Just because there are a lot of reasons to think that maybe the story they tell is not exact. And that was something that I found kind of interesting. So like a few years ago, the Dollop, the Dave Anthony and Gareth Reynolds podcast, they did an episode on Huey Long, and so that's where a lot of my information, that and our good friends at Wikipedia are informing me a lot about Huey Long. But I mean, he's always been an interesting figure. If you saw the movie or if you're a literate person and you liked the book, All the King's Men, the Robert Penn Warren book, that's supposedly about Huey Long.
Oh, okay.
And the sort of thing. Sinclair Lewis wrote a book in I want to say in the 30s called It Can't Happen Here, about a sort of fascist leader coming to power in the United States. And that is also a sort of Huey Long parable. And that's something that the episode didn't really go into. They painted him as a populist figure and one who was sort of out there for the working person and for the poor, and he was. And it's hard to talk about Huey Long because he's like equally good and evil in a lot of ways. He built a ton of hospitals. He taught 100,000 people in Louisiana how to read. I mean, Louisiana in the 20s and 30s was a very poor and a very I guess backward, to use a kind of loaded term, place. And Huey Long was out there honestly fighting for poor people and for and against like big business interests and oil companies and things. So like it's you hear some of his speeches and you're like, yeah, all right. And then you kind of look further and you wonder, okay, what am I getting on board with? So just a background about him. He was born in I think 1893. Grew up in Louisiana and got going really early. Like he was he dropped out of law school at like 19, but still managed to argue before the
That was
Supreme
wild
Court.
to me.
Yeah, that's really
more than one.
impressive.
And I mean, this is also like long enough ago that America wasn't really a very serious place
Sure.
yet. You know, like you could have kind of goofballs come to enormous power in ways like, you know, we it's hard to remember. Well, I certainly don't. I'm not old enough, but like prior to World War II, America was kind of a joke, right? Like it wasn't. It was a smaller country. I mean, not in terms of,
Sure.
of area, but it just wasn't like a world power in the way that we think of it now. It was getting there, but it wasn't yet. So in 1924, he's elected governor on an extremely powerful, extremely populist plan. He's talking about building roads. He's talking about building hospitals. He's adding night school so that people can learn to read. He's talking about doing all kinds of social programs. He added medical school to the Louisiana State University, and but at the same time, so he's doing all this good stuff. He is also like the archetype of that sort of Southern politician who is in control, is like dictator for life in whatever sort of fiefdom he has, right? So like when he leaves office, his wife takes over, right? And then after the assassination, his son is senator from Louisiana for like 40 years. You know, it's these you know, political machines happen all over the place. There's New York, there's Chicago, there's all the sort of expected things, but like Huey Long is kind of the archetypal Southern like I am the state kind of person, and that's where it gets kind of scary, where all of the populist rhetoric kind of turns into stop sounding like, I don't know, Franklin Roosevelt and start sounding like Benito Mussolini, right? And so in a way, it's interesting to talk about Huey Long now because, well, we live in a country that has a Huey Long sort of esque figure at the top who's just not nearly as skilled and powerful in the way that Huey was.
Did he really wear white suits all the time?
But he not only wore white suits, he would wear like purple and pink suits and things. He was a very flashy
I wish they had
dresser,
highlighted that more in the segment.
Yeah, they had him in a white suit, but
I think
they should have put in a pink one.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was wearing a white suit when he died.
That.
So they were just being yeah. But so Huey Long, part of his we should say this is a fun little part of his work. He keeps getting elected to political office and then getting impeached because people are, you know, he is genuinely opposed to business interests and they come for him. And he upset all of the, like, this is the 30s when the Democratic Party is the only party in the South, right? And it's sort of turning the tide between, you know, the parties have sort of switched alignments in terms of ideology.
Sure.
throughout the century. So this is kind of in a flux. So he's coming in as a populist Democrat, which is new, and when he's elected to the Senate, and I believe that is in
Sure.
1930. He's worried that his power in the state itself is not going to be consolidated properly. So he actually takes 9 months to get to the Senate. He's elected and then delays swearing into the Senate for 9 months so that he can stay governor and make sure that the people he wants to be in charge are going to be in charge when he leaves. So as a senator, he's still basically running Louisiana, though he's not supposed to be, and he's just kind of a loudmouth. He's for the poor. He's Mr. Tough Guy, and there's a lot of reasons I think people liked him because he did genuinely support them, but at the same time, and they do mention this in the episode, that he's sort of insanely vindictive. I was
wondering if this was going
his
to
opponent
to Huey Long, because
they said
if you became his enemy, you were an enemy for life.
I wrote that down and I was like, well, that's admirable. Say what you will about the man, but he knew how to hold a grudge.
And he absolutely did. And that is kind of comes into do with his assassination. So, I mean, one of the things the episode doesn't go into and is probably pretty related to his death is that in 1935, a paramilitary organization was formed in the state called the Square Deal Association, explicitly to fight Huey Long. Like, these are guys with guns.
Were these the guys that
getting ready to go to war with?
Yeah, that footage is amazing.
And I mean, yeah. So like, they did have a shootout at the airport in Baton Rouge, and like it's so they're kind of acting in the episode like, who could have seen this coming? This is why would this simple doctor shoot the senator and things like that? And it's like, well, there's a lot more to that story, especially around violence and Huey Long as a person than they're really giving it credit for. So the story of the assassination is that for whatever reason, the United States senator is in the state Capitol building. Not a normal thing, at least today. He isn't a state legislator, right? He is a national legislator and has no legitimate power in the state at that point. But he's there. He's fighting with people. He's walking around, and this Dr. Weiss, what is his first name? Carl Weiss is waiting there, supposedly to speak with him. But at some point, he's coming out of a guy's office, and Carl Weiss allegedly pulls a gun and shoots him. And then Huey's bodyguards take out all of their guns and shoot Carl 60 times.
They wanted to make sure he was dead. And also that he didn't come back as a zombie.
Yeah, no, they just turned him into pulp on the ground. And Huey doesn't die in this incident. He
they
runs
reenact
off
when he's like, he shot me. And he's like running down the hall.
Yeah. And he kind of staggers off and is taken to a hospital, and this is also not covered. They do cover it a bit in the show that there's some controversy as to whether a bullet was removed from Long's body, from him. He was still alive at the time. According to some witnesses, says the episode, that they pulled out a slug, and by like vague descriptions from non-professionals of the bullet, they think it's too big to have been the size of the gun that Carl Weiss had. other people say there wasn't a bullet that was ever removed from him. One thing we do know is that in Baton Rouge, he went to the hospital and they tried to get, this was not in the show, but they tried to get some of the doctors from New Orleans who were, the bigger city, they're more specialists, to come up to work on him. But they were in a car crash on the way there. So the chief person in charge at the hospital at the time was kind of like a country doctor. He didn't really know surgery, but he was like, well, I'll give it a shot, and tried to do the surgery. And yeah, Long ended up dying a few days later, or 3 hours
They were like,
later,
in this segment, they claimed that the bullet went into his intestine. They like patch up his intestine, but then just like don't notice that his kidney is also punctured. Is that line up? Does that seem accurate?
I mean, so I did a little looking, and nobody's. The thing is, like, this isn't really a big conspiracy theory. I think you have to be pretty deep into Huey Long lore to be concerned about this. I don't think most people accept that there is any real question to what happened here. I think it's kind of like there are some historians who are very interested in Huey Long as a figure, who do want to think that maybe it was an accident, or maybe it was, there are people though who think, like, at this time, Long was having a feud with Franklin Roosevelt. So there are people out there who think that this was like done by the government, and it's too early for any of the like CIA or FBI stuff. I mean, the FBI existed, but not in the way that we kind of would think of it 30 years later. But yeah, it's not the world of conspiracy hadn't really been constructed yet. So
literally, people said they were going to kill him, and then he was shot.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, somebody made a death threat that we're going to shoot you tonight, and then he got shot, and people are like, how could this have happened? It's kind of well, and the other thing is that, so they said, his only connection was that his father-in-law was a judge who was being gerrymandered out of being a judge by what Long was doing. And that's true. But Weiss's sister was also fired from being a teacher because of Huey Long, and his like sister-in-laws. He had a bunch of family. I mean, I think to be sort of prominent in the state, you were either with or against Huey Long, and if you were against him, you were very against him. So it's yeah. So it's hard to say, and I don't know. I don't know that there's any evidence that Carl Weiss was part of the Square Deal Association, the sort of paramilitary organization formed, but those were just business owners. They weren't like guerrillas in the forest or
they
something.
Were just people who hated.
They didn't set up a yeah, it's not a group living in the swamps like doing terrorist attacks. They were business owners. They were middle class people who felt like his sort of strain of populism was detrimental to their business.
Of that, all the guys getting off of those trucks with guns is wild. It's worth watching the segment just for that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's an interesting. I think that, I mean, I know we talk about this later, but I think the reenactment is decent, and it's actually kind of an interesting thing to learn about a guy that is sort of an obscure figure in American history. What he would have done if he hadn't been killed is an interesting question. There's a lot of theories that he was going to run against Franklin. He had originally supported Roosevelt in 1932, but there were theories that he was going to run against him in 36 from a more populist standpoint. And then there are theories that he wasn't going to do that. He was going to do some other electioneering, but he would say things like, you know, he would always say that Franklin Roosevelt was a fraud because he was from a rich family, and that if I can promise way more than he can, and if I get in there, they'll have trouble getting me out after 4 terms and things like that. Like, he was ready to become, you know, this would become the United States of Huey Long's America and things like that. So I don't know. I mean, he's an interesting figure.
They show this footage from his funeral of all of these people lined up to pay their respects, just like regular people that felt impacted by his policy. So he was incredibly popular to the people who liked him. That's
200,000 people went to his funeral, and yeah. So it's really difficult. It's hard to say. I mean, one of the things a lot of historians point out. So, you know, you think Southern politician in the 30s, and you kind of wonder. One of the interesting things about it, he was opposed to the Ku Klux Klan, and he was opposed to a lot of types of bigotry. He didn't use a lot of race baiting in his speeches or anything, but other historians have said, well, this is the Jim Crow South.
Yeah.
He didn't have to, exactly. Like, that almost went without saying in Louisiana in the 30s. So it's, and he also did a thing where he would say what he knew his audience wanted to hear. He would, you know, I guess there's stories of him campaigning in northern Louisiana, which is much more sort of, you know, they were very opposed to alcohol and things like that. And he would be Mr. Teetotaler up in the north, but then when he was down near New Orleans, he was talking about whiskey and all this. So you never really, the most important thing to Huey Long was that Huey Long be powerful. And whatever he had to do to get that, it seemed like he was willing to do. But yeah, whether Carl Weiss actually shot him or not, I almost hope not, just because that guy seems so sad. His son seemed like really sad on the episode. I mean, but at the same time, I don't think it's such I don't know that it's like out of the realm of possibility that a doctor whose family considers themselves being ruined by Huey Long would snap and take matters into his own hands, or would secretly be part of a paramilitary organization set up to violently oppose
the evidence that they presented
senator,
was more like, these are not the actions of a man who was planning to kill Huey Long. And I was like, well, what if he wasn't planning to? What if he just did? Like, what if he did go there to talk to him, and then Huey wouldn't talk to him, and he just snapped and shot him?
What do you think of the theory put forth in the episode that there's no way he could have walked into the Capitol building with so many security guards there with a gun without getting frisked or someone noticing the gun and taking it away?
I mean, it's that we think of that now, like going to an airport or something, but they didn't have metal detectors. They didn't have technology. You know, it would have been
and then seeing this doctor with glasses and probably was like, go on in.
Like,
that was my thought too.
What I thought was less likely was there's a theory that there was a theory put forward that Carl Weiss punches Huey Long, and then one of the bodyguards accidentally shoots Huey Long, and then they all shoot Carl Weiss to like cover it up. But part of that theory was that then they went to Carl Weiss's car and got his gun and dropped it. And I was like, how would they fucking know he had a gun? Or what car was his? Or what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense to me.
It seems like the simplest scenario is that Carl Weiss shot him. Now that there was an elaborate conspiracy with all 60 of his security guards to all cover up their accidental murder. Like,
I don't know how they would know that he owned a gun or that it was in the glove compartment of his car and that they could go get it and leave it there. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. I mean, it's hard to say. In a way, it like, I mean, I can't say it doesn't matter, but it isn't really a question that a lot lot of people have unless you're pretty specifically.
I do feel bad for his son. I think that was because he was just a little baby at the time, and it would have to be weird growing up. And it's like, oh, your dad's that assassin. Like, that's just a strange life.
Right. Yeah, and it doesn't have that same like we last time I was on, we talked about Sirhan, and that is a weird story, right? There's weird stuff in that story. And the Kennedy assassination, there's a lot of weird stuff in that story. And so it's easier to kind of pull strings on that and have stuff fall apart. Here, there's just not that much to pull. And I don't know. I don't like being the guy who comes on and is like, yeah, the official story is always true. But but at the same time, I feel like there's just not that much. Like half of Louisiana, or maybe 45% of Louisiana hated Huey Long. 55% of Louisiana loved Huey
There's
Long.
literally a gang.
And the people who hated him had
their
like
sole
Who wanted
goal
him
was just
dead?
to kill this guy. So
And then he died.
yeah,
Yeah.
not that
exactly.
specific.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Yeah. The gun that Carl Weiss used to shoot Huey Long is on display
Oh.
at the old state capitol in Baton Rouge.
kind of
if you are
interesting.
looking to go see it.
Well, they
So that's
found it in
available
like
for
that
you.
the someone's safety
yeah,
deposit box.
Oh right, yeah. They it was in the police chief for
Yeah.
the gear.
It was missing for a while, and it ended up being in his
the police
his
chief who wouldn't.
safety deposit box for some reason.
And that is a weird thing. I'll give you that. That's a string you
I
can
don't
pull.
know. I don't think there used to
but
be this like really tight chain
I mean-
of custody on stuff. I think he was kind of like, "Well, this is cool," and just like hung
Right.
on to it because it's like a piece of history.
And that's a big, yeah, and that's a big part of like why this story is harder to talk about because it is so old and life, like the way crimes are handled and the way, like, yeah, you could probably walk into the Capitol building with a gun and no one would really note it. You're not going through a metal detector. You're not necessarily there's not some guard sitting on a stool asking you to open your purse or your backpack or whatever. It's just not, life was different back then, so it's hard to say.
I do find it
but,
interesting.
If you found some more evidence, yeah,
I don't know that it's that
interesting. He's an
mysterious, but I
interesting
do think
figure.
that
Beck, are you saying you're not going to devote your life to this conspiracy, like that
and
one flat earther we watched that documentary about?
I'm probably not going to. No, I might.
As far
I might.
as conspiracies
If
go. Not a lot of people talking about this one, so this could be the next big thing. Maybe you should start a podcast all about this.
Mac's wearing a T-shirt that
that's a
says
good
"I am
point.
Mac McCormick," and people would just like come up like, "Is it really you, the Huey Long conspiracy
I
theorist?"
wonder what the merch possibilities of this could be. Yeah, think about it.
I think Mac would have to start wearing a purple suit all the
Yeah.
time.
Okay, no, you got it. Oh, I could dress. I could. Yeah, like those people who like study Mark Twain too
Yeah,
much
that's
and then
weird.
start
What is
impersonating
that?
him and stuff. I could be.
Is it just the more
Oh, hi.
the more you
Didn't see
read
you
about
there.
Mark Twain, the more you're
Come
like,
on in.
no, a white three-piece suit is a good idea.
Yeah,
I like the
you're
idea that you're gonna start
you're
dressing
drawn to
kind of
it.
like this
It's,
Louisiana dandy, like but in Minnesota, where you're wearing like a purple linen suit and like fanning yourself. Yeah,
oh. I
I think
do
that could be a
declare.
good affectation for you.
It's-
If we ever get to go outside ever again.
It's sweltering in this house. Someone do something. Yeah. Darling, would you get me a glass of frosty
See,
lemonade?
perfect.
Apart.
The transformation is already beginning.
Quench my thirst.
Yeah. Wow.
My only
It's-
note
yeah.
about this case
I like it.
is
You know what?
that they call it a mysterious legend, which is what they call like Bigfoot and like Loch Ness Monster.
They've done that with other like historical cases too, and I don't know why they just didn't make a like history mystery or
It's a
something.
mysterious legend.
But they do throw the. I
The
think
legend of
last
Huey
time
Long.
Mac was on, it was a mysterious legend, and it's like Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster, guy who got shot. Okay,
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
unless Bigfoot killed him.
Have
Yeah,
they
I
looked
mean,
into it?
Oh,
Mac, what's into your conspiracy theory?
Hmm. All right. What do they have a special name for the
Not
Sasquatch
to my knowledge.
in
Maybe.
Like
Louisiana?
the
Is
Wood
there
Ape,
a
but
do we know if there's
Louisiana's version.
a swamp
Ugh.
version
They
of the
should.
Maybe there's a
Yeah.
swamp
Ooh.
ape.
the what? Right. Yeah. It could be. Yeah. I mean, I think it is weird that they call it a legend, but I don't know. What are you gonna do? They didn't have a good category. I don't know that they knew they were gonna be doing a lot of assassination talk when they started the show, so
This
maybe they weren't
segment
ready for
was
that.
called
But
Assassination
I do
Talk.
think the sort of summary of yeah, it's but I do think like the summary they gave of who he was a little simplified. I think maybe it it definitely focused on the better parts of Huey's
Well, I think they wanted it
career
to be
than
more
maybe
sympathetic,
the more scary one.
but then it does kind of leave out some of the motivations for killing him.
Yeah. Yeah, which I don't think were noble. I will say that. I think that whoever shot him, if it wasn't an accident as alleged in the show, then was doing it because like their liquor store was having a hard time. It wasn't like
Sure,
we
yeah.
need to stop this
It was a
man
grudge.
from helping too many people. It was yeah, it was this was probably a pretty sort of
He shot me. He
personal
The
and
shot me.
slow-mo
business
reenactment
related
of
grudge.
him
So
running
I'm not
away
like
is pretty good.
This actor, like, he loves this role. He
He
fucking
got
commit.
really into it, and I have to say, the actor they got for
he had a good
reenactment
time, yeah.
of Dr. Weiss looked just like him.
Exactly
Unlike the last
like
episode
him.
where they had a 40-year-old play a
Yeah.
teenager. This guy looked just like him.
No, this one was uncanny. Maybe he is somehow a Dr. White's impersonator.
It's very niche.
That's
He just
a niche
appears at
audience.
like
That's
historic
something.
homes in Louisiana. It is I, Carl Weiss.
He's one of the least
Yeah.
one of the least popular
He
accounts
has
on
a
Fiverr
cameo.
right now.
It's only
is the Carl
$1.
Weiss impersonator. Yeah. So read your first. It's me, Carl Weiss, assassin of Huey Long. Just want to say happy birthday to Jenna.
Obviously, Samantha and I should start doing
Should we?
cameo. We should do it for like 50 cents. We
That
should
we
try to have the
split, we each
cheapest
get a
cameo.
quarter.
Yeah. We should try to have the cheap. I'm pretty sure you have to be like invited to do it.
Cameo must take a
but
percentage. Like, what would be our cut of 50-cent cameos?
I don't know.
I think they were kind of like hitting up they were being a little shady with the quarantine, with like, hey, you're gonna be stuck inside.
All
and you
I
want to make
know
a little
about
money
that
while
is
you're
that
and
Trixie
trying to
Mattel
get
keeps turning them
celebs
down.
to join.
So if you wanted that Trixie Mattel cameo, it's apparently not happening.
Yeah.
But ours for 50 cents.
Sure,
Hit us
I'm not
up.
doing anything else. I'll record some cameos for a quarter.
We'll spend it on beef
We
jerky.
do a lot of cameos to get beef jerky. Shit's expensive.
God damn, you're right. You're so right. Oh, I have another update for everyone, and it's so sad, and that's that I no longer work at a salon, and I no longer have access to hair, so Mac's not going to get a surprise rat tail.
Mac, do you really, really want a
Oh.
rat tail?
Yeah,
And that's why
I
it could be
dodged a
birthday
bullet,
surprise and not a really weird prank.
No,
That would, yeah. I think maybe when I was in like third grade, that would have been exciting, but I don't know that. Back when
sure
the New
did.
Kids on the Block all had rat tails.
Was
I
it
would
listener
sort of love
Gary who photoshopped
yeah.
me and Robert Stack
Yes.
with rat
Robert
tails?
Stack
Those are
is
pretty
on our
good.
Instagram if you want to see Robert Stack with a rat tail.
That was a good
Which-
picture.
Who
Yeah.
could you not? We've been waiting for this all our lives. Okay, there's one more. Miss Mac, do you feel like you've done justice to your segment? I feel like you have.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, this isn't the biggest mystery of ever, but it is interesting to learn about Huey Long, and he's worth looking into.
I know like
just
nothing
as
about
a-
him,
a
so I thought it was
historical
pretty
figure and
interesting.
kind of a
Samantha, you have
Yes,
our
and it's
last
a lot
mystery.
of love.
Saved just for you. It worked out perfect. You always get lost love and you always get treasure.
So we are looking for the siblings of Mary Jane. And this is how the story goes. On a summer day in 1947, a housewife in Weed, California was walking through an overgrown field, which is appropriate. Apparently
As you do.
weeds in Weed, California. She's walking through a field
Strange
on her way
name.
home from like getting groceries or something, when she finds a young girl beaten and abandoned, just like sitting in the tall grass.
This is so sad.
Really, she was taken to a hospital and placed in intensive care. Due to shock, she was unable to speak to anyone or tell them who she was. She was nicknamed Baby X by the nurses at the hospital.
What if they couldn't come up with like a cuter nickname for her? That sounds like some sort of cyborg robot. Baby
I
X.
see the movie where Baby X turns into like an assassin or something.
Oh my
she
god!
Like grows up.
Do you know who it is? It's Baby X.
Like her childhood.
Baby X. This is the Muppet Babies version of Wolverine.
The thing is, even though the makeup is so bad, just seeing this like very bruised, beaten child in a field, even though it's like not realistic, it's still so really sad.
She was kept in the hospital because the authorities did not know what to do with her. Her photograph was
that's the solution.
The photograph was distributed to several newspapers across various states. And then 2 weeks later, a witness came forward identifying the girl as Mary Jane Medlin, the daughter of Lucille Medlin of Selma, Oregon. Lucille was staying in a log cabin in Selma with her boyfriend, young son, and older daughter. A police officer got out of his car. This reenactment police officer is ridiculous. And he approaches the couple, showing a photograph of Mary Jane beaten and bruised to the boyfriend, who first denies that he even knows who the girl is. But then when
he's garbage,
Lucille admits that the girl in the photograph is her daughter. And the boyfriend confesses to abandoning the child, but claims that he did not beat her. Apparently,
he's like, all I did is abandon her in a field. It's fine.
Beat her. Like, who else? Okay, this guy's clearly trashed. The couple had apparently decided to abandon the child because they thought that they were unable to raise 3 children. Lucille and her boyfriend were arrested and charged with child abandonment and assault. Lucille was allowed one visit with Mary Jane in the hospital, where Mary Jane met her younger brother James for the first time. A few weeks later, Lucille and her boyfriend pleaded guilty to the charges against them and were sentenced to 20 years in prison. Mary Jane, her 3-year-old sister Leoma, and her 4-week-old brother James became wards of the state and were separated. Mary Jane initially went to live with her biological father, but later spent time in several foster homes. She married at the age of 16. She and her husband now own a successful restaurant in Placerville, California. They have 4 children and 10 grandchildren. In 1988, Mary Jane began searching for her siblings, and in 1991, she found her sister Leoma Crane. They were reunited. It was really cute because in the episode, Mary Jane describes how scared she was that her sister was going to reject her, and her sister was like, no, she's great. And then you see them like together, they're friends. It was really cute.
They're like walking down the street and she's like, I think I'd like to buy that teapot. And then the other one's like, why don't we go see how much it is? Pretty so adorable.
Mary Jane and Leoma are now searching for their long-lost brother, James Gilreath. James was born on June 14th, 1947, in either Selma or Grants Pass, Oregon. He may have been adopted by an Oregon family, and they believe that his name may have been changed to Donald. So an interesting note on this case that I found when I was looking it up on Unsolved Mysteries Wiki is that before Mary Jane was identified, some investigators speculated that she was a missing Oklahoma child named Joan Gay Croft, who was also featured on Unsolved Mysteries. Although I don't know when this, I assume we'll come to it eventually. She was a girl that went missing from an Oklahoma city in the aftermath of a horrible tornado. Apparently the tornado hit the town and she and her sister were hiding in the basement, and her mom, her mom found them in the basement and she was fine, but then her mom had to go to the hospital, and in the aftermath her sister said that 2 men came into the basement and abducted her. And so a lot of people thought that this,
Wow.
if you look at the photo of Joan, they do kind of look similar, her and Mary Jane. Now it wasn't her because Mary Jane was identified. But I just thought that was interesting. So this case is solved. James's adopted sister was watching the broadcast and contacted her mother, who contacted James. His name is now Donald. He goes by Donald Barrow, and he lives in Fresno, California. 2 weeks after the broadcast, Donald and his family drove to Placerville, California, where they were reunited with Mary Jane and Leoma. The siblings had not seen each other in over 45 years. Sadly, Leoma Crane passed away
It's
from
really
colon
cute.
cancer in 2008, but they did get a few years together, so that was nice.
It's a very
The
sweet
reunion is really cute. Donald is like, I'm a dude that doesn't know how to show emotions, but I have a lot of emotions right now.
He seems so happy. He brought them presents and these balloons that say congratulations on them.
I just couldn't stop from thinking of him at the balloon store at the like counter,
Happy
just
birthday?
like,
No,
all
that
right,
doesn't work.
let's get some balloons. What are they gonna say? Yeah, happy birthday,
Congratulations,
Nora.
you
Thank
found
you.
me.
No, that doesn't make sense.
I
guess congratulations.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
It's really interesting for me to see these people that feel such a like deep connection with their siblings that they essentially have never known.
45 years.
And yet they still, I mean, she literally saw him one time for a few minutes.
Thought that she
and
might
yet
be 2 years old when she was found. So I don't remember anything from being a 2-year-old, but she remembers seeing her brother once, and she carried that with her for her entire life.
And wanted to find him, and he's clearly so happy to like be a part of their lives, and it's just really sweet.
So, yep, that's the story of Donald does have a mustache. It was pretty.
That's true.
Pretty standard. I think he would look better without it. It's a little bit creepy, but you know what?
I called it the happy family. It's a very big mustache. It's
very
huge.
Triangle in shape.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was just so happy for Donald. You know what? Yeah. Yeah,
let
that's
him,
the congratulations balloon of a mustache.
All right, should we rate this episode?
Yeah, that's the whole episode. We only get 3 mysteries in this one, so let's go ahead and rate it. It's really not that mysterious. A fire, not mysterious. A guy getting assassinated who a bunch of people wanted to kill, not that mysterious. Lost love, not that mysterious. Thumbs down. I say so.
Reenactments is our next category. They were really good.
I think pretty good.
Were quite good.
Yeah, that was good. Do you guys know if, like, I kind of wonder sometimes if Unsolved Mysteries is like buying footage from documentaries that don't end up working out or something? Because, like, sometimes they have these reenactments that are really good, and I mean, obviously sometimes they have like the actual family members of missing people or whatever sort of walk down and go like, oh no, what happened? You know, and so that explains some of it. But sometimes the quality is sharply different from when it isn't. And it makes me wonder if they like bought something here. You know, somebody was making a school movie about
the historical ones, because they don't get any of this real people, they just end up getting much better actors.
Choose which ones they invest a lot of money in. Because, like, you're right. Sometimes we have
that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Clearly put a lot of work into finding actors that actually like know how to act and look like the people. And then in our last episode, we have like that weird lake monster.
It was almost confusing. Yeah.
That are playing college age students and like
teenagers and don't look anything like them. And you're like, what is happening right now? But I think that probably something like this, they could like feature in the commercials, and they just poured more money into it. And some of the more typical segments are kind of just we can stretch our dollar.
Right. Our next category is fashion.
Okay, I have to say thumbs up because Mac's now going to be wearing
Yeah.
three-piece linen suits all the time.
I thought the fashion was pretty good, actually. And Robert Stack, he's in a few different locations.
That's
He's
right.
like in the woods
Yeah.
at one point for no reason, but he's got the trench
Yeah.
coat on.
No reason at all. None of these
No.
have anything to do with the woods.
This is definitely he just refused
Very
to show
possible.
up one day, so they sent the camera
This
crew
is like
to him.
actually
and he was,
Robert
well,
Stack's
fine, we'll choose
backyard.
here.
Are those all the categories we did read? Okay, we got.
Well, we didn't rate Robert Stack
because
he got.
This episode.
Yeah, I think this episode's pretty good. Even though it's only 3 mysteries, they did a good job of covering them.
I thought
it was pretty solid.
I liked it. I feel like 3.5 maybe.
I'm there with you. Yep, 3.5. It's not quite a 4, but it is really good.
If we had 4 mysteries and maybe like a ghost,
Mac, what do you think?
Probably be a 4.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It's a nice ending. Yeah,
the Lost
so
Love was nice.
You get
It
one.
had a nice ending. Yeah, the fire was interesting, but not like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, oh, that sucks. Huey Long was interesting
mixed
though.
Because you get the contemporary arson, you get a historical assassination, and then you get like a nice like current Lost Love to sort of end it up on a high note. Yeah,
I
that's
agree.
what
If a ghost had been in there, that would have really kicked it over the line.
I agree. Do we have recommendations this week?
Okay, I have the simplest, almost like goody two-shoes recommendation for this week, which is that in these trying times, I feel like people should try journaling. I think it's very overwhelming. It's very stressful. We're all feeling a lot of emotions. Maybe you don't want to, burden other people who are also stressed out, feeling all these things. It really helps to write stuff down. I personally, I kind of hate doing it, but I always feel better after I do it. You don't really need like a special anything. You have a notebook. When I had an office job, used to journal at work and put that in a Dropbox. You don't really need a like special whatever. I think just to like process those emotions and get them down will be helpful. That's my recommendation. Super simple.
That is good. It just occurs to me now that all of the people who are like really into bullet journaling and to-do lists and stuff must be losing their damn minds.
I'm recommending more just like sit down, write whatever you're thinking, just spill it out. Don't worry about it being like very profound or like eloquent or anything like that. Just like be like, hey, today I was worried about this, but I have plenty of pasta, the dogs, or whatever. Write it out. And I also just think this is going to be like a very important time in your life, and it will be interesting to look back and remember what this is like because it's so fucking weird. That's my recommendation.
A weird recommendation, but it's something that I've been enjoying as I've been stuck at home, and that is live animal cameras. So,
yes, great idea.
To recommend eagle cams because it just so happens Minnesota has one. You can find it. It's a really good camera. It even has sound if you want to hear the eagles. It's the Minnesota DNR's non-game eagle cam. You can Google it and you can find it. It's on YouTube. And the eagles just hatched 3 chicks, like just last week, the 3rd one hatched. And I've watched this eagle cam for a few years. They had a transitional period where they had like lost the camera one season. So like whatever, but it's a nest that's actually kind of close to my work. So I drive by it when I'm actually going to work. And, first of all, it's adorable. Seeing the little baby chicks, it's fun to see them be fed. Like the parents will like bring fish and stuff to the nest and then feed little babies and then you can watch them grow up. But also like people get so into these eagle cameras. This year for the first time I joined the Facebook group for the eagle camera, and I cannot think of something more wholesome than just all of these old people on Facebook that are just like so invested in the lives of these eagles. They have names. They're gonna have a naming contest for the chicks pretty soon, which is like
that's so fun.
Take screenshots and like post updates in the group that'll be like feeding at 4:55 p.m. It looks like all 3 babies got something to eat. It's like so adorable. They'll like narrate the like lives of these because they're also like a new pair of eagles, I guess. And so like they have this whole like thing about how they're new parents and like I don't know. Maybe other people aren't as into this as I am, but it's really fun to watch and it's like very low stakes and low stress. And it's something that you can
Back
that's pretty
around,
much all I have to say
oh, sorry.
about it, to be honest.
Back around the 2016 election for a while, I was watching this
Oh.
walrus cam a lot. That I forget exactly what it was, but somewhere on the coast of California, they had set up a camera of where this place where all these walruses hung out. And for some reason, it
I
was
do
so
find it really
relaxing to watch.
actually.
And they eventually turned off that camera, so I should find a new one. But something about also because you had like
Oh.
the ocean noise, like lapping, and then the walruses were just
Yeah.
hanging out, having a grand
And-
old time. I was like,
And I think there's
this is the
some
stuff.
zoos that have
Hook it to
gone
my
through
veins.
eagle cameras to like because people are stuck at home and like need something to do. They have so you could probably just look around on the internet to see if there's a different animal that might interest you. I really like the eagles just because it's fun to watch the babies grow up. I will say that
I need a capybara cam though. I'm looking
there's
for that.
another
It
eagle
literally
cam.
right
It's the
now.
Southwest Florida one, and that one has had like some drama this year actually because there was
Oh,
one baby that
what?
actually that one has had drama for a few years. The only reason I watch it is because I think a year ago or 2 years ago, one of the babies got attacked by a owl and fell out of the nest before it was ready to fly, and they like collected it and like rehabilitated it anyway. So I still follow that camera on Facebook, and I saw this year that one of their baby that they had hatched one baby and it had died, and there was a huge like conspiracy about whether or not there was a fish hook in and that's why like the baby died, and like because I guess the people that run those organizations, like the local DNR, don't intervene if it's like if something is happening naturally, like with the 3 babies that hatched in Minnesota, one of them might die. That's just kind of how it goes. Not often do you get all 3. So like they won't intervene if it's natural, but if it was like a man-made calamity or like something unusual like the owl attack, they will. But they didn't, and then it died. And so everyone was upset because they thought that they saw like a fish hook. But it turns out it probably died because the parents brought something to the nest that had been killed with rat poison. But then the adult eagles laid another egg, and I guess it just hatched. So they have like another baby in the Southwest one. So if you want to watch that go down.
Mac, is this going to be your new conspiracy? Eagles conspiracy?
They killed him. They was assassinated.
And, I kid you not, that is what people were doing.
In frame 44391, you can clearly see a fish hook.
It also could just be like a twist.
This is murder.
Thing, I don't know.
Okay,
don't
you know how there's like
what they're
those
telling
conspiracy like cruises or conventions? Do you think people from the Eagle conspiracy will like start going to that?
They've got a little cardboard like trifold thing that
the Eagle conspiracy.
They're like in the corner with it's like, we can never compete with like flat Earth and
yeah, that's a good philosophy, I think. Mac, did you have a recommendation for us?
No. Yeah, I do want to recommend I mentioned it, the episode of The Dollop about Huey Long, because I don't know that I did a great job explaining sort of his trajectory. It's episode number 215. Okay. It's from like 3 years ago. It's very good, and they go into it a lot more in depth, and that podcast in general is fun to listen to. They talk about a lot of weird history moments that you might not have heard of. There's a really good one about Australia losing a war against emus. If you've heard of that one, there's an emu war in Australia, and the emus won. So it's something to.
I mean, it has been a hard year for Australia. I hope our Australian listeners are okay. They had all those fires, then they had floods. Now they have this.
Well, the floods put out the fires, so that was it's been
plus emu wars. So
take care of Tom Hanks.
Damn.
The emus have only
So
gotten
you
stronger.
say.
That was a while ago. I think they would probably win today, but at the time it was closer. Um, but that's a good podcast. I recommend. And the episode about Huey Long,
Okay,
if you're
cool.
interested in
Well, I
anything
think that pretty
said,
much wraps it
All
up
right,
for
should we
another
plug
week
our
in
shit?
quarantine. I mean, I guess if anyone cares about anything anymore, we are on social media, Twitter, Instagram. We have a Facebook group. If you just want to talk to people, you could go to our Facebook group. You can really talk about whatever. We don't care.
We are still producing.
We have a Patreon.
bonus
If you're in
episodes.
need
We'll have
of
one
some,
out pretty soon.
yes, if you're in need of some bonus extra content, you can go get our whole back
A whole
Patreon thing for $1.
That's patreon.com/maybe
I know.
perhaps
So
maybe it's spelled wrong, but you can Google. You can find us. There's also links on various places, including our website.
Our website is perhapsitsyou.com. If you want to give us a 5-star review, I mean,
Yes.
we could use a pick me up. We'd appreciate it.
I don't think
Is
so.
there anything else that we're supposed to plug? We're gonna keep
Yeah.
doing this as long as we can. Figure you could use something to listen to and we could use something to do. So
Yes.
hang tight, stay inside, stay safe, 5 listeners.
I think that's it. Thanks, everyone.
I think that's pretty much it. Oh, you don't worry about solving any
you're off the
mysteries.
hook.
You're on break
Thanks for
right
being
now. That's
on,
fine.
Mac.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Thank you, Mac. Thanks for doing some research.
Bye.
Oh,
Okay.
thanks for
All right.
having me.
Bye, everyone. Bye,
Everybody
BD
stay
Wong.
safe.